Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. It is Transforming Lives Together, the Power of Reentry Coalitions. And we have Joe Tucker, who's going to share. He is the Executive Director of South Street Ministries and the President of the Summit County Reentry Coalition. I know there's a few other counties in there too, so he'll explain a little bit more about that. And then Lola Simmons, she is the Executive Director at Home for Good Reentry and Resource Referral Center, and she's the president of the Route 11 Reentry Coalition. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit about Relink before we get started. Relink.org is a database that is free to be listed on and free to use. And all you have to do is log on to a computer or cell phone and put in relink.org. And this is going to be the initial screen that you're going to see down here. We have over 18,000 resources now. I was always saying 15 or 16,000. We have over 18,000 resources for people who are in need, anything from addiction recovery services to basic needs, food pantries, clothing, housing, and today we're going to be focusing on reentry. So when you click on Find Help Now, you're going to have some options over here of how you can search. You can search by city, zip code, and we are on all the tablets in the prisons throughout the state of Ohio, and on those tablets, they search by county only. So if you are talking to anyone who's referencing their tablet, it would be by county. And then you can see these different categories of care that we have listed here, and today we're going to be concentrating on reentry. So when you click into reentry, you'll have these different options: housing, employment, education, support services, and all of the reentry community groups and coalitions are listed on Relink. So this is the one that Joe leads, and this is Summit Portage and Medina Coalition. This one would be listed. If you would click on it, you would have all the information, contact information, who to call, how to get a hold of them, anything and services that they offer. And you'll see that we have this new little ODRC Ohio little icon there. We just put that on recently. And that is showing that the ODRC Office of Reentry has certified that this is a reentry coalition. So you will see those now in our section for coalitions. You can look for that little symbol. And then on the next page, you'll see the Route 11 Reentry Coalition, which is what Lola leads, and that's Ashtabula, Columbiana, Mahoning, and Jefferson County. So they are all listed in Relink. We are always telling people when we're out at the different resource fairs in the prisons to make sure that they look up in Relink the different groups and community groups and coalitions that they can contact in the area that they'll be returning to. We want to make sure that everyone has your services listed on Relink and listed accurately on Relink. So you can easily go to relink.org and create your own login. When you create a login, all you have to put is your first and last name and your email address. We don't do anything with the email address. It's just to connect you to the provider page that you'll have access to edit. And we do that on our end. We can connect with you first, and then we will connect you to that page so that you can make sure that your information is either properly on there if you need anything edited or corrected, or if you want to add an organization that isn't currently on there, that's how you would do it, by having your own login. And it's the same updating your organization data. You just log right in with that login that you created, and you can update it at any time. You can update it in the evening, in the morning, anytime that's convenient for you. We just want to really make sure that people have accurate information when they're logging onto Relink, especially if that's somebody who's in crisis or somebody who's really needing to look at a provider and they're looking at that as hope in something that someone can help them, an organization that can help them. We don't want the information to be incorrect. We don't want them to have contact information that isn't right. We don't want them to go to a food pantry that the hours are listed wrong after they found transportation to get there. So we're really diligent in our office. We have Kathleen, who does a great job keeping the data updated, but we also need you to check yours as well and make sure your provider information is correct. if you need anything from us, if you need to update anything, if you want any, we have table cards that have relink.org on it and a QR code. If you want any of those sent to you, you can reach out at us at this information that's listed below. If you have any questions or you need any help with anything, we're always happy to help here at Relink. So I am going to stop sharing and turn it over to Joe. He's going to introduce himself and share a little bit about the work that he does and Reentry Coalitions. Thank you, Joe, for being here today.
No, Rachel, thanks for hosting us. I'm really glad to share about Reentry Coalitions. I'm a big fan of back and forth, so I'll be sharing, but if you have questions, throw them in the chat or in the Q&A box, which I think Rachel will field for us. But I really do enjoy kind of a back and forth. I looked over the names. I recognize some of you. We have a few reentry experts on the call as well, so I'm excited to see some of my good friends, although in this particular Zoom format, I'm not seeing your screens, which you're probably appreciative of, since you can just hide in the background and work on your computer simultaneously while listening to the Zoom call, which I never do. So yeah, I'll share a little bit about myself and about South Street Ministries and my reentry and coalition journey. So today, every Tuesday, South Street Ministries hosts a weekly peer-to-peer support meeting at the front porch. That's where I'm calling from right now. And if the internet goes out, I apologize. But we are 1 block from the Summit County Jail. We're 1 block from the community-based correctional facility. And as I said, every Tuesday at 4 p.m., we'll have probably 60 to 70 justice-involved individuals, majority of them CBCF individuals, that come to our facility for a peer support meeting. We have a meal afterwards, and it is a really invaluable time of reentry gathering and support from the community by the community. Now, that being said, I'm not part of the reentry community. On the few times that I share on a Tuesday, my spiel usually goes like this. I don't have a background. In fact, I'm the opposite. I grew up and I was a square. I went to church. I followed rules. I was a straight A Boy Scout kid. I didn't have sex till I was married, and I didn't drink till I was 21. So on any square box you could put in, I kind of fit those confines of what it means to, toe the line and follow the rules. I would like to think some of those came out of deeper values than toeing the line, but all things said, comparatively to my justice impacted individual friends, we have different lives. And we really try and facilitate that time of reentry support. Now, that's reentry support on an individual basis. Coalition work is a bit different, and I'll share about that presently. So for me, Miss Lola's on the call. Wonderful. Good to see you, Miss Lola. I was glad to see you join us because I didn't want to carry this by myself. So a coalition is really just that. It's an assortment of organizations, individuals, entities that gather together to support reentry in a county. What's unique about a coalition is just that, is it's recognized by ODRC, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, as the go-to and the collection and consortium of organizations that will support reentry in that county. Now, for coalitions to work well, there's a lot of different ways that they do work. Give me 1 second, my staff is coming. So for coalitions to work well, sorry, it's always a busy day here at South Street. There's a couple things for them to really live out and facilitate. Some coalitions are goodwill coalitions. That's kind of what Summit County represents. We gather together with really no authority or backing structure other than the will to show up collectively and be about the work of supporting returning citizens. Some coalitions are under the umbrella of a nonprofit. So for our coalition, it's under the umbrella of South Street Ministries for any fiscal stuff that we want to facilitate and do. But again, no one is mandated to show up. They show up because they want to be part of the work. Other coalitions are under the umbrella of a nonprofit, and that nonprofit really is the lead agency in that coalition's efforts. And then in other counties, that coalition is really an extension of that county office, that county agency, as a pseudo-government entity and organization. So there are a lot of unique and different variations that coalitions can form. And thankfully, on this very call, I think we have John Krasinski, who has literally written the book on what do coalitions look like in Ohio. So at some point, if you need more resources, we have folks on the line that are the resource masters that can help a county walk through the creation of a coalition. And I will say ODRC has been pushing for every county in Ohio to have coalition representation, whether it's individually as themselves or collectively through some shared county resources. So how do coalitions work? Coalitions work really like most organizations. I'm going to lean into kind of how ours formed and what was strong about it and what's, well, I won't do the weaknesses quite yet. But in my opinion, for coalitions to work, one of my favorite leadership books is a book called Rocket Fuel. And it talks about the two types of fuel that go into rockets to get a rocket to go into space. And essentially, as the story goes, that narrative, that metaphor, there's one primary fuel engine that really gets it out of the atmosphere. And I often think about that as the visionary for an organization or for a coalition. There needs to be usually someone that carries this vision of, man, we could be more. We could be more if we work together. We could be more if we're together. We want more returning citizens at the table. For me, that was individuals like Donovan Harris and Perry Clark that had this vision for reentry that was broader than their organizations and broader than their own capacities. After that first iteration of rocket fuel, there's a second one. That's the builder, the holder, the kind of the nerd that holds some of the details together. That's often the role I take. So for coalitions to work well, in my experience, there usually needs to be this tag team or more effort of individuals that carry that purpose and passion and mission, coupled with individuals that carry that capacity and wherewithal to see some of the details and logistics through. I'd say for any coalition that really wants to see their salt, you really need that tag team effort of both visionary and doers coupled together. Sometimes you get that all in one person, but that's a rarity. And then from there, coalitions then begin to move and grow into the needs of their respective areas. Some coalitions are funded by counties, some are funded through their nonprofit as a percentage of it, and some nickel and dime and scrape together the funds they need to do the work they want to do. From time to time, we've seen grants from ODRC to help enact the work of reentry coalitions, but oftentimes we're working through the various partners in that consortium to figure out how can we address the needs of the returning citizens we care about. One of the most direct service needs of coalitions is the citizen circle. So citizen circles are often monthly gatherings of returning citizens where circles of support come around them to help guide them through the work and walk of coming home. So oftentimes this is a very collaborative process. We'll work with parole authority, we'll work with other providers and leaders to schedule people. And with that, we'll begin doing some of the ins and outs of getting those respective reentry support services scheduled and set up to support individuals. All right, no one's asked any questions in the chat yet. I told you guys to be interactive. I have a few other points that I will share, and then I'll turn it to Miss Lola. If I were to speak candidly, and I will, I think coalitions often sit on a razor's edge. Reentry is in and of itself not the most fundable nor exciting point of service and engagement, and it comes with a lot of hard knocks and hard strokes. Our founder of Reentry, Donovan Harris, returning citizen himself, he'd often joke and say, hey, if you want to serve in reentry, prepare to have your heart broken and your wallet stolen. And I don't like that as a overarching archetype of returning citizens or justice impacted individuals. But in reality, in day to day, you have folks that don't make it the first time around, or the second, or the third. You have situations that you think start off well and end poorly. You do deal with that heartbreak. You do deal with those contentions of something happened. So it does take someone with a strong sense of people, valuing people at their deepest, utmost level, for coalitions ultimately to have their salt and worth. You have to have that capacity to say, hey, I care about people enough that in some of their deepest and darkest times and moments, we're still going to step rightly. We'll still be here tomorrow, even though this person stole some bus passes from us. We'll still be here tomorrow, even though this person no call, no showed from their appointment. We'll still be here tomorrow, even though whatever that situation may be. At the end of the day, this is people work. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of logistical details. There's forms to fill out with ODRC. There's strategic plans to initiate and launch. So there is that high-end organizational operational efficacy that you have to manifest. But oftentimes it comes down to, do you care for the people? Because that's what, in my experience, I have found bring people back to the table again and again to be about the work. And the work for a coalition is in and of itself cross-organizational. You work with judges, parole officers, sheriffs, nonprofits, advocacy groups, public defenders, prosecutors' offices. Those are two opposing forces. So in and of itself, to do coalition work, you have to have what I call organizational humility. You have to be able to approach the table with humility enough to work with other partners that may approach the work differently than you do. And that's a skill. It's a skill not everyone has. You will lose folks from the coalition table if you can't approach that table with organizational humility. It's a huge value added that you have to approach coalition work with, because in and of itself, it is together work, not individual work. And again, going back to kind of what I iterated on not too long ago, that purpose, what brings you back to the table? We had our first in-person meeting for the Summit County Reentry Coalition not too long ago. Let me bring you back to why that was the first in-person meeting, because of COVID. So for us in Summit County, I'll give a quick narrative of how we came together. We were funded years ago by the county itself, and that lasted for a few years and then fell apart. So coalitions have, again, that razor's edge. They can fall apart without too much difficulty if they're not stewarded well. And in Summit County, ours did. It started in 2012 and it fell apart in 2017. Out of that falling apart came a remnant. Some of us stuck it out, stayed together, kept meeting, 3 or 4 of us just trying to hold on to the pieces. We did that for about 3 years, and we realized pretty quickly that 3 or 4 people do not a coalition make. They should be larger. They should be more networked across your county with cross-sectional providers represented. COVID hit and we were all pretty discouraged. We pivoted to virtual meetings, and finally ODRC reached out. Well, the ODRC had been along for the ride in the first place, but reached out and encouraged us to say, hey, see this through, get your act together. There's funding coming. We want to see this into the next reality. And we did. We reestablished the Summit County Coalition. We pushed for folks to jump on the calls. We regathered 20, 30, 40 different organizations and just began to share what's going on, who's doing what, how can we support each other, as well as listening to some of the needed areas of our community and constituency. From that came a point of broader engagement. We brought in Medina and Portage to be a bit more inclusive with some ODRC directives, with seeing coalitions in every county, and continue to meet virtually, because at this point we were 3 counties and that's hard to get all the people in the same room at the same time. But just this last month, we decided to have our first in-person meeting, and we gathered 30 individuals representing different organizations and courts and public defenders and various offices to share what was going on in the reentry world that we could be supportive of. And one of the things we all shared was, what's your purpose? What brings you to this work? So again, coalitions take structures and logistics and collaboration, but on that value level, they take purpose, humility, and ultimately it's people work that make these things work. So I've been talking for some time. I'm going to let Lola jump in, and then I'd love to get some questions. We would love to get questions. Although you're still on mute.
Good afternoon. I don't know that what I have to say is much more different than what Joe said. You did an awesome job, Joe, so thank you so much for the background on coalitions and what you guys are doing right now. So I'm here today, and as to not stray from the points that I needed to share with you, all that are on this call, I wrote mine down because I know that once I get started, I may go on and on and on. So as respecting the time of everyone on the call, I want to introduce myself as Lola Simmons, and I'm the Executive Director of Home for Good Reentry. I'm the chairperson for our local citizen circle for Mahoning County, and I am the president of the now Route 11 Reentry Coalition, which serves Ashtabula, Trimble, Mahoning, Jefferson, and Columbiana County. To begin with, I want to share a little bit of the history of how our coalition began, because we have not always been in existence, and we don't go back many, many years. So a little bit of our history is this. In 2022, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction released an RFP as an opportunity for existing coalitions to access funding to expand their coverage to counties who at that time were not covered under a coalition. As director of Home for Good Reentry and bringing in about 20 years of experience in the reentry field, I thought, well, it can't hurt for us to write a grant to help support one of the existing coalitions in our area. I'm responsible for writing grants for all of our funding for operations and administration. So I thought, well, let's see what we can do to support somebody else as they support us, because we're all working in the reentry field together. This proposal, if granted, was going to assist in helping to address some of the basic needs that we found to be primary in reducing recidivism. Our funding, very limited. We're funded by the Community Development Block Grant. We are funded by some of our foundations in the Valley. And the money for something like that is very, very limited. We could do birth certificates. We might be able to pay a fine here or there, but nothing on a scale as what could have been or may have been available to us through this grant. So for over 12 and a half years, Home for Good Reentry has been in existence doing those things. We've been fighting for the dollars and getting things done. You know, one of the things that we're known for is doing the Certificate of Qualification for Employment. But for 8 years of that time, we have also been running the Mahoning County Citizen Circle. My thought was, it's similar, but different, as Joe outlined some things there in what he said. So for over 12 years, we've been there to reduce barriers through networking with available resources for the same target population. And even though the dollars available through this state grant wasn't going to be dispersed to coalitions as a whole, that was going to be dispersed coalitions as a whole, was not sizable enough to fund massive goals. It was, however, sufficient enough to get the ball rolling. This funding would allow a coalition to begin to address at least some of the needs of our justice impacted members of our communities. Some of these needs included financial assistance, such as identification, paying costs attached to getting back to driving legally as opposed to just out there, paying some court costs and fines, some supportive services for nutrition and for clothing, work attire, so on and so forth, background checks. So shortly after submitting our proposal to support a coalition, Home for Good Reentry received a visit from the Office of Reentry with more directives on how to engage in additional collaborative efforts. As a result of this meeting and additional follow-up considerations, Home for Good Reentry was asked to lead a coalition and to become the lead agency over a coalition covering Mahoning County, Trimble County, Ashtabula, and Columbiana. And as I said, it now encompasses Jefferson County because we agreed to do that. We're thankful to ODRC for giving us the opportunity to continue the reentry work that we've been doing so diligently and faithfully for so many years without the ability to do some of the things that this grant allowed us to do for those counties. In particular, I'd like to thank the staff of the Office of Reentry and also Mr. John Grzenczyk for being who he is and supporting us, assisting our coalition in creating our strategic plan, and for helping us arrive at a name. So John, if you're on this call, thank you so very much. And to all the others, I just want you to know what type of person John is. He's committed to what he's doing, and we love him because of his commitment and dedication to those who are not just justice impacted, but also underserved. The mission of the Rod 11 Reentry Coalition is ensuring that formerly incarcerated or justice-involved individuals have access and/or linkage to services that support reintegration, successful reintegration, and that they are treated with dignity and respect. And in any conversation that we're having with them, I'm talking not down to them. I would never accept that from anyone. The individuals that we work with, because we have these relationships, and the ones that we are creating now, it's almost like a quiet vetting process that we're doing, because we want to make sure that no one is insulted in his or her situation because of what they've been through. The vision of the Rod 11 Reentry Coalition is to reduce recidivism by empowering individuals with the knowledge of necessary resources that are designed to rebuild character in order to invest in themselves and their community. So, developing while growing this coalition. Home for Good has been aware of the fact that one of the key factors in overcoming barriers is the ability to develop relationships of commitment and trust with like-minded individuals who, working together, play a vital role in reducing the barriers to reentry. As I said before, chairing the Citizen Circle allowed us to know many individuals in the area, learn to know others in surrounding areas, build relationships with our institutions and staff, build relationships with the Office of Reentry, and also the Department of Corrections as a whole. But because there's an ever-evolving pool of new agencies, providers, community partners, and stakeholders, and of course, our justice-impacted community, we want to make sure that we are encompassing those players that need to be at the table, so that if there's something that can be resolved on a legislative or political level, that one voice is one voice through many voices. I could go as Home for Good, but if Joe and I and any of the other coalition leaders or participants, community partners, anyone who has a voice can speak, together we're one. As I said, it's ever evolving as to who the players are out there in the arenas that we need at the table. They all come with their own individual knowledge and experience in their fields, and we don't all have that. We learn from them, they learn from us. Coalition partner meetings for us are held they're held quarterly on the fourth Thursday from 11 to 1. We encourage those who are justice impacted to attend. They are more than welcome to share their lived experience, which helps those of us who are working for their good to tell us how we can help them. Strong partnerships with community partners, employers, the faith-based community, survivors, halfway houses, and others are necessary to address the recidivism problem. Together, the members that make up the Rod 11 Reentry Coalition play a massive role in doing our best to ensure a successful return to our communities. While as coalition leaders, we fully understand that the highest percentage of our membership consists of those who are involved in other aspects of community work, in addition to holding full-time employment, local, county, and statewide. We know that they're not going to always be able to be at the table. Being a member requires commitment, a promise, which is a promise or a firm decision to do something. When a member cannot attend a meeting, we encourage them to send someone in their place so that we will still have the voice of their organization or business. The very first meeting that we had consisted of 48 individuals from various businesses, and we were ecstatic to see the numbers of interested people. Many of them now have their own reentry programs, which are subsidized through whether it's mental health and addiction services or others like that. Reentry has come massive in the area. We want all of us to be on the same page when we're talking about that. Some of us have been doing it for longer than others. I'm not the longest out there, but there are some that are very new to reentry. And we want to be able to be on the same page. We did a SWOT analysis, but before that we did who's in the room. I'll back up. We did who's in the room, who's here that has an interest in a solid interest in reentry and is willing to give of themselves to help. We did a SWOT analysis. It was conducted as a guide or outline to see where our focus should begin. And of course, sustainable housing and employment were right at the top of the list. And so those were our baby steps. Where do we go from here? Well, we know that for those of us who are connected with OLARC, we know that there have been some resolves in those areas. For example, housing, House Bill 50 under the Fair Housing Act. ODRC is doing something awesome right now with the Ready to Rent program for those soon to be released. And they can tell you more about that. But for us, it was a big step because we've been doing the certificate of qualification for employment. Now there's a certificate of qualification for housing. The certificate for qualification for employment has been an awesome tool in getting a person looked at for not who they were, but who they are. So where do we go from here? I encourage anyone who is in the process of building a coalition or currently engaged in a coalition to actively participate in the Ohio Association of Local Reentry Coalitions. If you've never heard about it, Google it. OLARC is a statewide coalition of all reentry coalitions that work with the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction and meets monthly on the third Tuesday at 2 p.m. It is extremely informative with ongoing updates from ODRC while advocating for systemic reforms that improve the reentry process of so many affected individuals. Any one of us knows somebody that knows somebody who has been affected by justice involvement and as a result are impacted by that. Also, even though it may seem like every time you look around, there's something coming through your email from the coalition, that would be me. Please open it. I encourage you to take the time to read it. If you're working with the Reentry Coalition, there's a reason for that email. There's an opportunity for you to stay informed and connected. That's, if it's going to junk mail, let's fix that. If you're a part of our coalition, the Route 11 Reentry Coalition, we need to open our ears and our hearts to that population and do what we can. Martin Luther King said, and I quote, "We can all get more together than we can apart. And this is the way we gain power. Power through our coalition. Power is the ability to achieve purpose. Power is the ability to affect change. And we need power. Again, power through collaborative efforts in our coalition." Walter Payton, a former NFL player, said this, and I quote, "We are stronger together than we are alone." Stronger together. The strength and power of any individual or organization working together for one cause or common goal far exceeds that of individuals, or in this case, a single organization working separately. Thank you.
All right, we got some questions. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Ms. Lola.
You're welcome.
So is there a reentry coalition in Stark County? Asked by, I can't, too many tabs open. Mr. George, yes, there is one in Stark County, and John, I'll let you respond in the chat with who that is as a point person.
Shantae, I believe.
What's that?
I believe it's Shantae.
Oh, it's Ashante?
Mm-hmm.
Does she
But
use her
John
chaos,
can confirm that.
use her chaos to control email?
Mhm. Yes. Thanks.
All right, so the director of the Stark County Coalition is a woman named by the name of Shantae. This is her email there. Ooh, I don't know how to spell her name with all the correct Shantaes out there. Yeah. All right, that was the easy one. Asked and answered. All right, how do I get information or trainings for the qualifications for rent? I'm gonna pivot that to one to Miss Lola.
The Department of Rehabilitation and Correction is offering that to some individuals. I don't know if John Grzelczyk is on this call right now. I know they put out some information regarding that. There is a cost that has to be borne by the individual who takes that, and I'm gonna say it's upwards $600 per person for the classes, which would qualify them to train individuals who are eligible for rental, the rental qualification as determined by ODRC while they are still incarcerated. I do have, and Mr. Bishop McNeil is from this area. I will forward him the information that I do have on that. Thank you.
And Mr. Theodore Brown asks, have the coalitions begun to see a decrease in funding under the current climate of reducing federal and state costs? And how can the coalitions individually and collectively petition the state to increase funding for reentry projects and services? Great question. Candidly, most reentry coalitions haven't seen a breadth of funding in the first place. So I have found that reentry work is often a scrape, figured out by the seat of your pants, nickel and a dime type work in the first place. From time to time, in my experience, we've seen reentry funded through kind of cross-sectional, intersectional things. So reentry is fundable through housing initiatives or recovery initiatives or workforce engagement initiatives. It's rare that I've been able to find in and of themselves reentry centric funding sources, with the exception of ODRC funding things directly or the federal government through like Second Chance Act grants. At this point in time, I'm not an expert on this, but I think those are still to be determined as far as what the federal government would do with some of the scope of reentry funding. I haven't seen that be assessed or cut at this point. But those that are experts can set me straight if I'm misinformed. But yeah, I mean, advocacy is a huge part of what coalitions can do to say, hey, this is important work and it warrants funding and consideration.
I agree with that, Joe. And what I find is even though the money may be accessible for services, and we're talking about delivery of services is only as good as having reliable, committed individuals to oversee the funding for those purposes. That is where we struggle to get any type of assistance, whether it's through our CDBG funding, Community Development Block Grant funding under the Community Development Agency for the counties, or unless we're a large entity, and I'll say this, as I mentioned before, if it's something with mental health and recovery or substance use and addiction services, those have more of the ability to access funding to help with the delivery of the services, accurate delivery of the services. So we struggle as service providers to do what we do, sometimes on nickels and dimes. But because we continue to do it, I say that shows someone who is totally committed if they can. if they can. Sometimes it's just a struggle. But as far as any funding, there was a mention of a possibility of some additional coalition funding, but we don't know where that is right now.
All right, so Miss Nancy Pryor asked, is there a Reentry Coalition in Franklin County? And I believe, oh, Rachel's already on it. beat me
I
to it.
actually went to our website and I pulled up all of the coalitions through Relink, and Shantae is the person who's the point person for Stark, and then this was the information for Franklin, and I'll put the phone number for the Franklin County as well.
I'll say a few other things as the questions are coming in. One of the things that's unique about coalitions, coalitions are great advocates for systemic reentry change, because it really is a representation of folks that do the work around reentry to saying, here have been some of the weak points of the system. One of the novel aspects of reentry coalitions is that they are often connected to the systems of incarceration. You know, we work with ODRC, they're on our calls. I know for some returning citizens, for some justice impacted individuals, that's more than they want to handle or deal with at any given time. So I've seen some reentry advocate groups really be for us, by us. I think about Building Freedom Ohio or the Ohio Organizing Collaborative. So again, part of the reentry work is that organizational humility to come in with other partners who come from different perspectives and different seats at the table to say, how can we best serve the people? How can we best serve the folks that are coming home? And part of that service is both direct service and also the indirect service of state and federal advocacy. Did I miss any questions as I was sharing? No, we're good. Franklin County. I guess my closing sense will be this. In my experience with reentry work and coalition work, especially coalition work, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier, that this is people work. And at the end of the day, you make contracts or you make, I have contracts with many organizations. And often those contracts are only as good as the pieces of papers that are there. Sorry, John just texted back in the thread that he's getting gas. But anyways, John's a great example. I have a contact at ODRC in John Grzinski, and I trust that contact. And at some point, before John, there was Brian Bosworth, and Brian stepped out. Thankfully, John stepped up, and we've continued good contacts. But oftentimes, with any organization, any entity, any government, your point of contact there is your collaborative reality. You know, at some point, there could come some employee after John that stinks, and they wouldn't send us emails back, and they wouldn't be a good contact source, and coalitions would fall apart. Coalition work is people work. Despite some best practices of memorandums of understanding and fiscal sponsorships and all the nuts and bolts you need to make these things structurally work, and you do need those things, it will come down to your capacity to work with other people, to hear them, to esteem them, to show them dignity, to appreciate their points of view and their perspectives and their funding sources as you work together in those realities. So those would be my closing thoughts for coalition work, and then I'll leave it to Rachel and Lola to bring us home.
I'll add something that being a coalition has afforded us the opportunity to do, and that is, I'm going to say about a year ago, we were, as a Raleigh 11 Reentry Coalition, was approached to become a part of the Supreme Court Offender Reentry Program, ex-offender reentry program. And we now sit on the advisory staff for the SCORE Court under Judge Anthony D'Onofrio, whereby we see those individuals who are going through yes or no to be granted judicial release, and follow them for up to 2 years through programming, which can erase their probation reporting requirements following their compliance to the programming within the court. As a result of being on the court for common pleas out of Mahoning County, Judge Rice approached our office to see if we would sit as a staff advisor, one of the staff advisors on the same court out of, now Supreme Court approved, court out of Trumbull County. So being in a coalition and seeing what type of impact a coalition can have can open many doors to allow those that are out there that may think that everybody's given up on them. We haven't. That there's somebody that will listen to me and talk to me, not talk down to me, to have a conversation with me, to see what it is I need. Because I might be hurting on the inside, but I'm not showing it on the outside because I don't want anybody to know that. So affording us the ability to go places and talk to people about what reentry means to us and how we as a coalition, citizen circle, or Home for Good Reentry can help them, we're always willing to do that. We just took part in Judge Renee DeSalvo's Steering Clear Clinic. We're talking about getting rid of driver's license, suspensions, reinstatement fees, you know, all those things. If I need to make a large restitution, I may need to file bankruptcy. So we've been educated by the BMV to do those things, to work with those individuals, to walk them step by step. And that's through recognition from Coalition, Citizen Circle, and Home for Good Reentry, which says there has been some type of impact that these groups working together has been able to achieve. Let's tap into them. I will soon be sitting on the staff for Judge DeSalvo, which is a diversion program through the courts. So the opportunities are there so that we have those voices in the courtrooms now. Judge is to make his decision, but he listens to the staff of us because we've been doing this for a minute and we see people. Our docket last year was 513 people is what we saw. So we've seen in our 12 and a half years, why is our count up at about 3,800 people? It's that many people who've been impacted that need the help that a coalition working with others can help with. And so I'm just going to thank Relink for this opportunity. Again, thanking ODRC. Joe, thanks for your input because what you said just kind of gave it. I didn't have to do that part, so thank you. But yes, we want to empower each other while we empower them. So thank you.
I wanted to thank both of you for coming on today. I don't see any other questions, but I know that there are several people that asked me for this recording that had conflicts to be on live today. So if anybody thinks of any questions, or if you're watching this later, we do post it to our website. You can always email us at info@relink.org, and I'll make sure those questions either get to Joe or Lola or that we get them answered for you. We want to make sure, even if you're watching the recording later, that you get the answer to any questions that you might have. We have people saying, thank you, presenters were excellent. Thank you for the information. We knew at Relink when we asked Joe and Lola to come on and share about coalitions that they would do an excellent job. We admire the work they do. They're both excellent leaders, not only within coalition work, but within the work that they do at nonprofits and in the community. They help touch a lot of lives, and we love to be able to walk alongside and work with them. And I just thank you both for your time today. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. And like I said, if you need anything from Relink or you need to connect in any way, please don't hesitate to email us at info@relink.org. we will see you guys somewhere probably along the line working together. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Oh,
Rachel.
lots of good, nice comments people are making.
Thank you, Rachel.
The best.